Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, a series of questions without notice directed to the Prime Minister in the absence of the Treasurer. Mr. Speaker, the late Koyari Tarata, then Governor of the Central Bank of Papua New Guinea in 1994-95, said at the time when the hard Kina was abandoned in favor of the floating exchange rate. He said the Kina, and I quote, the Kina is no longer determined by one single currency, but by the weighted average of a basket of currencies. The comments by, it was reported in today's paper when the central bank released their monetary statement. And in that report, which appeared in today's paper, Mr. Speaker, the acting governor, Elizabeth Genia, attended a meeting with the commerce and industry and told them, and I quote, the value of the Kina is set against the US dollar, meaning it's pegged to the US dollar, and its value will move in line with the US dollar. Mr. Speaker, this is a very significant statement of a major policy shift. In 1975 to 1994, we had the hard Kina strategy, in which the Kina was pegged and tied to the US dollar. After it was floated, we had from then acting Mr. Tarata, the governor of the central bank, making that statement. And we are aware it's a floating exchange rate. Now there is a U-turn in that policy based on what Ms. Genia has now mentioned. And so my question basically is that, to the Prime Minister, to you, is that can the Prime Minister confirm that his government has abandoned the floating exchange rate regime that was in place since 1994 in favor of the hard Kina strategy that was adopted between 1975 and 94 and that which was abandoned? Question 2. Can the Prime Minister inform this Honourable House what is the rationale for this shift in the exchange rate policy amidst the chronic shortages in foreign exchange that we have had about, and also the effect of that on our imports as it was reported also in the same paper by the Asian Development Bank Outlook report? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Prime Minister.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good to see you back in your house, your chair. I want to appreciate your leadership at this time again. And I want to thank the opposition leader for asking an important question on Kina, Kina value, Kina on the market in terms of its exchange rate values, and whether the government is shifting away from pegged Kina against US dollar or Kina free floating on the forex market, or Kina being given a stable and a stable or pegged outlook. Mr. Speaker, just to quickly summarize in a response, we are approaching it in a hybrid manner. In 2015, for those who need to be refreshed in their mind, 2015 there was an approach by the then government, the O'Neill administration, to peg in some way Kina against the US dollar and to stabilize Kina from possibly free falling driven by market force. I want to indicate to this House, whilst pegging Kina at this level is also good, especially in an import-dependent economy, we are looking at it in a cautiously. When we took office in 2019, we had 30 plus key programs that we wanted to embark upon as a government to restore credibility in our economy, to restructure our economy and to ensure our economy is stabilized and for regrowth. I want to assure this House, through you, Mr. Speaker, that we are not reckless in the economy. We just don't have to look far back. In 2018, our economy was tracking at 0.1% growth. That's 2018, before COVID-19 travesty or pandemic hit our economy and hit the world. Before the Ukraine war, Russia-Ukraine travesty that has an important inflation effect to our economy. At 2018, when we took office, the country was in an unpronounced recession. The opposition leader, as an economist by profession, knows very well when your economy is declining towards a negative growth, and you're hitting almost at a rock bottom when you're at a 0.01% GDP growth, it's an economy in trouble. We were operating at a high. In fact, when they talk about inflation average at the time was about 7%. Deficit at the time was about 6%, deficit of budget. So we took over an economy that was free-falling towards recession, and we had to arrest the decline. And at the time, we did not want to uplift the pegging of Kina against US dollar. That would totally expose us further. Although the counterbalance to uplifting and allowing it to flow on the market value is good in some sense, especially in a small economy that is also dependent on imports coming back in. I beg your pardon, earnings from export coming back in. At the time, our volume of export was almost low in all commodities except our LNG production, exports. Today, 5 years on, almost 5 years on, we're starting to see, and you can look at central bank figures, you look at National Statistics Office figures, and you look at our export earnings from IRC. There's a growth happening in the agricultural sector. There's a growth happening in the non-mining resource sector in terms of our volume of export. So the idea, Mr. Speaker, the idea of possibly unbundling what was a pegged Kina in 2015, the idea of unbundling this and allowing for Kina to at least float on its strength of its value on the market is being looked at, but we are threading this very, very cautiously. All expert advice to us from ADB, from World Bank, from our development partners, from even central bank itself and our own treasury points towards removing the pegging and allowing for Kina to trade, and with a stage depreciation of Kina, so that the import and export driving forces could have a little bit of positive impact. There's a noted increase in export volume in our country. When you have a Kina that comes down by 5%, 10%, possibly the earnings from our export will then drive Kina back to a place where it's supposed to be on a free market economy. So I want to give assurance to the opposition leader. We're treading this very, very cautiously. We're allowing our numbers to dictate. And central bank and treasury are working in sync to ensure that we don't just open up, but we control the Kina floating issue, Kina pegging issue with a balance that doesn't harm the restructure of economy we've done in the last 4 years. All indicators looking good at the macro level. We just want to ensure that the macro level indicators cascade into the micro level. Growths are taking place, employment's taking place, forex movements are easy to come in and out. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the hard time clients are facing in terms of getting the US dollar they need, just one indication is that there's a demand increase in US dollar right now in our economy. And we have, although the highest ever forex reserve, today as I speak, 13 billion Kina worth of US dollar is sitting in our central bank. That is the highest ever. But because demand for forex has outgrown actual affordability in the trade that takes place every month, every quarter, every 6 months, central bank has been treating it very carefully, despite also increasing now the volume of money to the market has increased to $100 million cap a month. That is still insufficient, and we're working together with Central Bank to ensure that all this given a fine outlook and we don't compromise the regrowth of the economy we're trying to do, as well as maintaining sufficient support to the market and to the economy. So, summarize, Kina, the strength of Kina has been looked at deeply. We don't want to overly expose to the free market and allow it to float, but at the same time, it is good at the right time. Central Bank and Treasury combining their advices, we will try to see how it could be lifted. My own views, personally speaking, Kina should be really out there on the market on its own value. We also, government, if I could conclude by indicating to this House, we're looking at other major currencies that we want to partner with instead of just trading pegged with or used with US dollar, especially those countries that we have substantial trading partnership with. We're looking into using their currency as a currency of trade. Possibly China would be a currency of trade. At the moment, Chinese money could be a currency of trade. Central Bank has been asked to look into this. We have today with China 11 billion Kina trade volume going back and forth with China. That is quite big. With Australia and China, they're two biggest partners with us. And so we're looking at other trading currencies where we could use instead of just pegged against US dollar, so that we bypass the global value of US dollar in the global market. We go straight to the strength of the currency that we can trade with. So this is another option we're looking with as a government, to possibly use other major currencies that PNG is relating with in terms of trade for business and investments. But cut a long story short, Kina should find its place on the market. At the moment, Kina's value, if totally unplugged, unpegged, and free fall, we're treating it diligently so it doesn't free fall below a threshold where it could go into an area where, when you combine with inflation, it could be unsustainable for the economy. We're treating it very, very carefully to ensure that we don't increase inflation, we don't hurt our economy, but at the same time, we'll manage for earning more from our exports that is currently increasing as we speak. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.